Chapter 49. Kara. After I drop Blue off, everything fades into a comfortingly normal game. I make people laugh, I get people to smile. It's a numbers game more than anything, portraying the visage of someone who's too dumb to be putting up a front, who's just too genuine, too perfectly open and honest to be a threat. It's fun, for a while. There's a general leeway that I get from being an outsider. It's fun to get away with stupid flirtations and backhanded compliments and just pretend that I don't understand what's going on. I manage to get away with most of my pranks at the very least. It's not a hard disguise, but it is one that costs a lot of energy to keep up. The second others start to take their leave, I wrap up any social activity I'm engaged in for the night and rush to pick up Blue. I don't want to be rude, but I do want to get out of here as soon as possible. Shauna's cut her social circuit short for me after witnessing the lovely bit of fuckery I've managed to manners myself into, and she offers to take us home. The basement is surprisingly well furnished, and the attendants there keeping watch over the familiars seem nice enough. But I've been fooled before. As I go down the stairs and turn the hall to the underground chamber, I'm worried that something's happened in my absence. All that worry melts away as I enter the chamber and take in the sight of the cuddle pile that the familiars have formed. A tangled mess of limbs cuddled into each other as I try to look through the features to find Blue. When I do find him, I have to work my way quietly through the tangled pile to the opposite side. He's asleep, under quite a few different limbs. I don't recognize any of the other familiars, but either way I'd rather wake him gently than with any kind of shock. I settle for petting down a bit of hair that's sticking up, largely detached from the hairpiece. His ears twitch at the gentle touching, and I can't help the smile that spreads over my face as his nose scrunches up at the sensation. Huh? There's a rumbly, almost purr-like quality to his tone as he blinks about confusedly for the source of the disturbance. Hey there, sleepyhead. I continue scratching just behind his ear as I wait for his eyes to find me. Master! His voice jumps as he straightens up, throwing off a couple of the limbs thrown over him, and in the process sending some familiars grumbling through the pile as they wake up just enough to shift over. Ready to go? I ask, keeping my voice soft, trying not to disturb any of the other sleeping familiars. Yes. Blue nods along with his own words, beginning the process of extracting himself. As he gets up, he presses a quick hug to a couple of groggy familiars before he works his way out of the pile. We meet Shauna back at the front door after I find our coats, and tuck Blue into his winter cape. Ande never left her side, even after the whole mess of that weird game. The ride back with Shauna is quiet, but thankfully Blue doesn't seem to notice anything. Shauna drops us off back at home without a word, and I count my blessings. You doing okay, Blue? One hell of an evening. I try for a bit of levity before a loud crashing noise sounds from outside. What was that? Blue squeaks. His ears are pulled back as he peers deeper into the house as though there's something that will jump out at him in the dark. It's probably one of the Almacs in the garden. I try to explain. It didn't sound like a squawk, but sometimes the funny little creatures make noises that surprise me. I had just put up some coverings over the larger trees, and the ties that I used did make the ground below them a bit of a tanglefoot trap. I'll just go out and check on them, make sure they aren't stuck or hurt themselves. I huff, shrugging off my blazer and hanging it up on the coat rack. I can deal with it later. I hadn't thought that I would be wearing my uniform again, but I might actually need it more than I thought. I wonder if I need to get actual dress robes. That would probably be a headache. Blue follows behind me, pulling the twisted bits of the hairpiece from his hair as we walk. I pause halfway through the house to give him a curious look. He doesn't need to come with me, and he seemed pretty tired before. But before I can ask what he's doing, he takes the chance to explain himself. I'll help you, he explains quietly, picking the last of the flowers from his hair as he sets the hairpiece down on the counter. Sure, why not? I give in easily. It's not like there's anything secretive or dangerous in my backyard. I wouldn't mind the company. I'm glad that Blue's warming up to the Almacs anyway. I suppose it's best to encourage that. There's hissing and honking as we get closer to the back door that gives me pause. The Almacs are angry. There's no doubt about that. But it definitely sounds like more than one. It sounds like they're angry at something. Something that's invading their space. What the hell is outside? I pull the door open, looking out into the yard to find a body twisted and caught in the ties I've left. The two Almacs that have claimed a more permanent space in my yard have gathered around it, snapping and making their angry little squawking noises as the figure hisses back, unable to do more than struggle in the ties. It takes a second for my eyes to adjust, and then another moment before my mind processes what I'm looking at. My brain is halfway through trying to match the body to one of my nosier neighbors, before I recognize the ears and tail. Blue seems to come to the same realization that I do, pulling me back inside the house. Whoa, what's going on? I ask as Blue pulls me back by the end of my shirt and ducks behind the kitchen island for a little more cover. Master, that's a feral! He whispers, high and panicked. I try to remind myself not to laugh, but it's a near thing as I watch Blue hold a position against an enemy that can't advance. I don't want to make light of his fear, but whoever is outside doesn't seem like much of a threat. You don't know that. Maybe one of my neighbors just got a pet and we just left them out there. We can't do that. I try to reassure him, but he doesn't seem to take my encouragement to heart. This is dangerous! Master, you should probably call the... His voice pitches up in hysterics before I step in to silence his spiraling train of thought. I'm not calling the trappers down on this person. Blue, I don't think it's that big of a... I try to give him a little bit of reassurance, but he cuts me off. This is dangerous, he hisses. I can see too much white in his eyes as he scoots back just a few inches more. Every bit of his body is vibrating with tension. His tail is curled tight around his body and his ears are pressed to his skull. Maybe you should go upstairs and I'll deal with this, I offer. I don't want to put him through such a stressful event. He's had to deal with more than enough for the night. If he's not feeling safe, I won't force him to go confront whoever's outside. No, he yelps, taking a second to chew on his bottom lip as his eyes find mine. I don't want to leave you alone. You're right, Blue. I need my backup. I smile and offer my hand to pull him back up. We approach the door with perhaps more caution than the situation deserves, but if it helps Blue feel at ease, I don't mind. The scene outside is no less ridiculous when I see it again. The figure is still wrapped up in the tangled mess of the ropes. It's not a proper trap, but it's certainly doing the job of one. Originally, I had been worried about messing with the Almacs, but they've done a fair job just avoiding the tied pieces of the tree. Still, it's apparently enough to have tangled this wild-eyed creature. Given the chance to properly look, there's no way to mistake them for a pet. Their clothes are dirty and torn, they have no shoes, and their hair is dirty and unkempt. Their skin is scratched and grimy from days outside, and whoever they are, they certainly do not have the sweet disposition that most pets boast. I'm not too familiar with all the different species, but they do seem to share some characteristics with Blue. Their nature is pretty feline, sharp, pointed ears with tufts of black fur at the tips, and a shorter, flicking tail, but they are much bigger than Blue. They're built with a more muscular physique. They've got light sandy hair and large green eyes that are narrowed suspiciously as they bare their teeth. Hissing and growling, Blue does his best to both shield himself behind me and make himself seem like something to be feared. There's a little movement as he pokes his head out from behind me to show his teeth and growl at our new guest. Maybe this wasn't the best idea. Well, hello there. I try to be a little disarming. It's not the best start, but it doesn't seem like that's made much of a difference. As much as they can, their body shifts to face the newest threat, and when it sees us, they bare their teeth in much the same manner. I wonder if I should give some credence to what Blue said about half-mad, deranged beings. I wonder if they can understand me, if they can talk back. It would make the situation slightly more complicated if they can't. All right, how about we get you out of there? I try again, stepping away from Blue as I try to advance on the tangled mess they've gotten into. The Almacs recognize me and begin to leave the individual alone. From a cursory glance, the rope doesn't seem to be doing any real damage, thankfully. "Don't touch me!" They practically scream once I get close enough, and I back away on instinct. At least I know they can talk to me. They seem terrified as well as angry, eyes wild as their body makes a last effort to try and pull free from the rope once again. They shift again, slipping just a bit as the rope tightens where it's tangled around their wrist. Given the wince, I assume it's hurting them quite a bit. "I'll just get you down from there. Nothing more." I try to keep my voice light, but when they fix me with an angry glare, I press, "Or you can struggle with that all night." I watch as they process that, continuing to struggle for a bit before they stop, going limp against the bindings and nodding. "Master, this is a bad idea," Blue pipes up from his position, sneaking closer incrementally towards the house. I choose to ignore him, maneuvering the creature out of the snare. "Ah!" There's a shout as they jolt to the side, curling around their midsection. There's blood dripping down the side of their clothing. I try to push my concern to the side as I let them hold on to the lower branches and bend to pull their ankle from a similar snag. "We should patch that up," I say absently. Injuries are dangerous, but I have no idea how long this has been a problem for them. We can deal with that after I get them out. Though it's probably a secondary concern. I have no idea how to get this person to trust me enough to patch them up. The second they're free enough to move, they take off. I have a second to worry before they crash into the ground. In the attempt, they haven't been able to run very far, but perhaps more concerningly, they're clutching at the wound. We definitely need to patch that up. They give me a look of shock and fear at that. I can't imagine it sounds too good to them in that state. The deer in Stormlight's look on their face is a bit heartbreaking as they keep trying to move backwards, away from us. "Master, I don't think—" Blue's whispering as though a low volume will keep the stranger's focus from us. "Come on, Blue, give me a hand helping them up." I heave an exasperated sigh as I watch our new guest shy away from my approach. I go to one knee, a good step and a half away, watching as their eyes widen in surprise at my actions. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, but truthfully, I was just trying to avoid getting scratched. Blue's nails are sharp even without the constant pampering that I now know they require. I'm not taking a chance with some cat I don't know. "What's your name?" I ask quietly, trying to appear, if not friendly, then at the very least non-threatening. "Thana." They fix me with a strange look, answering haltingly. "All right, Thana. I'm going to help you up, okay?" I hold my hands palms up, trying to show that I mean no harm. Thana stares for a solid moment, judging, maybe just observing me, as Blue gathers the courage to come towards us in the yard. "Just one arm over here. Blue, you take the other." We heft Thana up, balancing their weight between the two of us, walking them slowly towards the house. They seem resistant initially, but the fight leaves them at the prospect of trying to balance their own weight. We sit them down in a chair, and Blue just backs away to the other side of the room. He's fixed Thana with a hard stare, and his tail twitches angrily. He's suspicious, but he doesn't seem inclined to get in the middle of things, at least. "All right. Blue, do you want to grab my medicine box from my workshop?" I ask, hoping that the little distance will help this tension. I can see him process that. He doesn't want to leave me alone, but it would be worse for him to be left alone. A little trust goes a long way. If I can show Blue that our new guest is not a threat, this will go a lot smoother. He takes one last look between us before nodding and retreating further into the house. "What do you want?" Thana chokes out through gritted teeth the moment we're alone in the kitchen. I'm taken aback for a second. They seem rather subdued, a little nervous when we took them inside. I hadn't noticed the level of low-burning anger that seems to be brewing under their eyes. "Testy, aren't you?" I roll my eyes and try to quiet the tremble in my hand. As much as I want this to work out, I have no plan. As much as I want to help, it doesn't escape my notice that this could end badly if they decide to become hostile. I don't want to cause any more harm if I can help it. Maybe a little more information might help. I was just wondering what kind of... I struggle to find an end to that question, but luckily they find an end for me. Tom, he grinds out testily, before quirking a sideways grin that has no humor behind it. You were wondering what kind of Tom would be caught wandering around your area. I was wondering more your species, but... I lie, letting the other question hang as I pull a mug out from one of the cabinets, slow and conscious of the eyes on me. I'm a caracal, Thana answers quietly, short tail twitching in agitation, shifting his eyes over my form like I'm some kind of puzzle he finds particularly disgusting. Oh! I nod to his answer, trying not to let it add to my uncertainty over the whole mess. I've heard of caracals. There aren't many this far north, but I've seen a lot of breeds outside their natural territory. Familiars handle geographic changes a lot better than their full-blooded animal types. From what I've heard, though, caracals are bigger and more dangerous cats. What do you want from me? I won't be the cowed little thing that you've made him. His ears press against his skull, and I can see the temptation to bare his teeth again. I feel the beginnings of a migraine starting as I turn away to fill the mug with some water from my pitcher. As bad as it is for Blue to be seeing a feral, I hadn't realized how bad it might be for a feral to see Blue. I suppose it makes sense in retrospect. Runaways know the life of pets or familiars intimately. They've rejected that life. They're trying for something else. I didn't think about how damaging it might be to see one of their kind still in the position they've left. I don't expect you to be like him. You're two different creatures, one of whom I've spent a long time earning the trust of. I try to speak gently. I don't want to agitate him any more, but I am just a little miffed at Thana's assumption. Earn his trust? What do? Promise to feed him on an actual schedule? Oh wait, let me guess. You pet him after you fuck his lights out. He speaks through gritted teeth. I let out a deep sigh and just stare at the water in the mug. It's not a big spell that transmutes it to a boiling temperature, and I certainly don't have the patience for a kettle today. Water set, I put a tea bag into the mug as I contemplate a response. I don't need you to do anything. I don't want anything from you. All right? I try not to let my anger rise to the bait, but I am now very certain that this was a bad idea. Thana's not capable of being physically hostile at this point, but that doesn't mean that he's warming up to the idea of me. I want to help, but he does still have to let me into his space. Trust is important. Thana's gone silent behind me, but I can only guess how long that will last. I turn, smile reaffixed to my face, ready to offer some tea to my stubborn guest, when I see the horrified look that's twisted his face. You're a mage, Thana stutters. Fuck. Yes, I answer bluntly. There's no point in lying. That would just make this whole situation even more complicated. I just have to take the obvious negative association that the title comes with. I... He stutters for a second, trying to find words before he just tries to stand and, presumably, bolt. But whatever wound is afflicting him forces him to fall back into his chair. Don't try to move. I rush to speak. Thana shrinks back in his seat, curling protectively around himself, even as he hides the wince from the movement. I realize a second too late that in my haste, my voice raised a little too harshly. I'm sorry, sir. I thought the house... I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude on your... place. He whispers out apology after apology, holding onto his composure by a thread. You don't have to be sorry. What about the house? I take a deep breath and just speak in what I hope is a calming, even tone. I'm so sorry. I was just passing through and I heard from some other strays that this was a place that I could find some food and a safe place to stay for the night. He offers up the information readily, and I'm thankful, though still confused. How did you get stuck in the tree? I ask. It's not like it would have been hard, but with how cautious he is, I can't imagine him getting caught. I was trying to slip between the ties when one of your mutants bit me and I tripped, he admits, pressing his hands together and looking down at the floor. I don't mean anything by the noise, but I see him shrinking in on himself more. Right. It's probably an insult. Stars, I don't have the mental energy for a social interaction. Instead of digging my hole any deeper, I just place some tea in front of him. They aren't wrong. I try to sound more confident than I am, hoping it will at least be reassuring. Though I wish I would have known that my house was a rest stop, I admit with a light edge of humor. I'm sorry, sir, he mumbles down into his lap, and I resist the urge to touch him. He's not blue. He doesn't know me. He doesn't trust me. I'm not a sir, and you don't have to be so formal. I tap my finger on the table, making a noise that startles him into looking up. Have a drink, I offer, pressing the mug closer over to him. Forgive me, he intones without emotion, wrapping his hands around the mug, seemingly of his own volition. You're forgiven, I say quickly. I don't like how he seems to have shut down. I don't know if there's something I can do about that. It's probably best to just start with the basic needs. You look like you're in need of a good meal. I speak like I'm thinking aloud. Truthfully, he looks like he needs a meal, rest, a shower, and some medical attention. But I will start with what I know. He twitches under my gaze, squirming, pulling his head lower and curling in to protect his center mass. I have no way to repay you, he whispers as his whole body begins to tremble. Well, how about you tell me what's gotten you here, and we'll call it even, I offer up casually. How I've... what? He looks up, confused. How did you end up tangled in my garden? I clarify, moving back into the kitchen and pulling out a wide-bottomed pan. Oh, I'm a runaway. He speaks absently, just watching me with confusion. Well, I gathered that, I admit, pulling some things out of my icebox. I can start making a simple dish, though I doubt he'll be too particular. I'm from Chamonix. It's a small... He starts again, a little steadier, but I'm so glad to see him coming into himself that I chime back in when I realize what he's saying. A small village just off Facespire. I know it. I let my tone show how impressed I am. It's quite a distance to travel, especially as someone who probably couldn't travel by traditional means. Yes, I've tried to stay hidden best I can. I caught a few rides with some caravans when I thought they wouldn't notice, but for the most part, I've just been trying to stay off the main roads. He fills in the image I have of his travel with slowly vanishing hesitance. I saute some vegetables as I set aside a bowl of rice. It's nothing fancy, but it's pretty easy to process given how far I am staying away from any more exotic spices. As the food gets added to the pan, Thana gets distracted by the popping, sizzling sound. I don't blame him. I've gotten more than I thought I would out of his story. It's fine if we stop there. Master, I found your box. Is everything all right? Blue comes running back into the room, larger medical box clutched to his chest. He does a double take, looking oddly at the food that I seem to be cooking, but does seem a bit more at ease about Thana now that he's proven he won't attack mindlessly. I stir the rice into the mix and set the element lower. Food or medical attention first? I look to Thana just in time to see whatever relaxed posture he's relaxed into tense again. He looks rapidly between me and Blue, giving voice to his confusion. I do recommend getting any stitching done before any food goes into you. I don't want to panic him, but I do have to err on the side of caution. I don't know what wounds he's hiding, and I don't want to surprise him with the prospect of needles. He pales rather predictably, stuttering, I don't... You don't think I need... Well, it depends. How did you get hurt? I cut him off. I don't want him getting it into his head that this is more of a problem than it really is. It's best to cut those lines of thought short. Stars. For all I know, he's just scratched himself and the blood's accumulated over a few days of reopening. It could be fine. I was running from a guard. Some people saw me rifling through their trash. I was just looking for some food, but... He explains in a rush, trying to get words out and suck air in at the same time. He needs to calm down. But at the same time, he said something very concerning. A guard? Did the person have a spear? I try to narrow down the possibilities. Yes, he answers hastily, eyes staring up at me with a wild plea. He doesn't know what he's done or where he's been. He doesn't know if the spears were the best possible scenario or the worst. Well, the good news is they won't be looking for you, but oh, damn, you wandered into the wrong space. Were there any large gates or weird-looking houses where you went? I try to describe as generally as possible, allowing for some interpretive error. Yes. A set of tall gates with all sorts of different crests on it. I didn't get a good look at the buildings, though. He answers haltingly. You wandered into the merchant's embassy. I explain slowly. I don't expect that to mean anything to him, though. Those guards were probably Mithrils. Nasty mercenaries, well-trained and super expensive. Did you get any other injuries? She knocked my head pretty good, but it was just with the blunt end. He scrunches his eyes closed, trying to recall every detail, but nothing else sounds too dangerous. Did you black out? Go to sleep? Any nausea? I ask, more for formality's sake than anything else. That would be a much bigger problem, but I feel like he would have brought it up before this if such issues had arisen. No, I didn't black out. It just happened this afternoon. No sleep. I'm not overly nauseous. He speaks haltingly, looking me over, seemingly confused about this line of questioning. I wonder if he knows that I'm looking for the warning signs of a concussion. Okay, that's good. Probably too late for an ice pack to do much good, but I can get you one if you have any pain, I offer, but he just shakes his head. I don't think I need one. Vanna seems to actually give it some thought, so I'm inclined to believe him. All right, how about you let me see that spear wound, I offer, moving over to the medicine box to pull out some disinfectant. He pulls up his shirt, haltingly peeling away the bundle of cloth he had pressed against the wound to start. I stop him when I see the skin start to pull, the dried blood adhering the cloth to the tender flesh underneath. I run some water around the area, loosening it with as little pain as I can manage, given the circumstances. He seems to have done his best to staunch the bleeding, but the cloth isn't clean, and I doubt he's been in an optimally sterile place. The wound isn't too bad. It's not deep, just long. We're gonna clean that up real quick. It doesn't look too bad. You shouldn't need stitches in any case, I reassure him. I can see the relief that falls over his face as he takes a deep breath and leans back into the chair. I give him a few seconds while I set up the disinfectant and gauze pads. As relieved as he is, this isn't going to be pleasant regardless. Would you let me heal you? I ask quietly, as though my volume might control the reaction that Vanna has to the situation. You're using magic! He immediately tenses, pulling away as much as he can, blood dripping out of the reopened wound before I have a chance to settle him. Only if you'll let me, I counter, showing my palms in the least threatening gesture that I can manage. I please don't. Vanna stutters, but I just cut him off. Yeah, that's fine. I'll give you some cleaning supplies and extra gauze pads when we're done. You just need to keep the area clean, I reassure him. Nothing is impossible without magic, but it is slightly less convenient. I... He gapes up at me as I go down to one knee with the peroxide-soaked gauze in my hands. You're gonna be fine, but this is going to hurt, I warn. I take my time cleaning and bandaging up the wound. I might have been able to go a little more efficiently, but I feel like it was better to talk Thana through the process of what was happening. By the time it's done, I can see the exhaustion in his eyes. Do you have any plans? I ask, giving him a gentle, rousing shake. What? He quirks an ear to the side in an action that looks so much like Blue I have to stifle a laugh. Any specific plans on where you're going? I clarify, going over to the stove and fishing out a set of dishes. No. I needed to get away. It's been enough to just try to make it one day at a time, Thana answers, and honestly I can find no fault with his logic. But it does get me thinking. Blue's just seated on the opposite chair, keeping a careful eye on our tentative new guest. He gives a confused little look as I start spooning out rice. Are you still hungry from the party? I made plenty, and those little pastry squares really aren't that filling. I offer to Blue, hoping it'll at least set him in a slightly less aggressive stance. You didn't eat anything, Blue counters a little defensively, glancing quickly between the two of us. Well, I wasn't very hungry. Just a little? I counteroffer, trying to speak through gritted teeth. I don't know why he's still so defensive. Thana's no threat, and he's so out of it he couldn't be even if he wanted to. Thana doesn't match the stories that Blue's been told. He barely matches up to the description. I guess, Blue acquiesces, subdued somewhat by my tone. I go ahead and serve a large helping for our guest, and more moderate servings for us. Thana at least seems appreciative, taking the proffered utensils and digging in. Blue picks nervously at his own food. He's not looking at me, chewing his own lip more than his meal. I take a deep breath and just will myself to let it go. I regret my tone, but I promise myself I'll make it up to him later, and turn to grab some dried fruit out of the pantry. There's a scraping sound as the chairs shift a bit, and I can just barely hear the whispering that started up over by the table. Is he serious? Thana nearly hisses across the table. I don't know what you're talking about. Blue's answer is strained. He just gave us normal food. Is he being serious, or is this some elaborate ruse? He clarifies. My master put food in front of you. He expects you to eat it, Blue insists, not unfriendly, but certainly not encouraging this chat. I stop listening, my full attention turned to the pantry as I look through boxes. That is, until I hear Blue screaming, No! Then the scraping of a chair against the floor. That's the only warning I get before Blue runs into the pantry, throws his arms around my waist, and gets behind me. What the hell? I yelp in surprise. Coming around the corner, nothing in the rest of the kitchen is disturbed, aside from our guest. Thana's sitting tense in his chair, curled in on himself, scared. I'm sorry, sir, he whispers, once again hunching in on himself. What happened? I ask a little desperately as Blue continues squeezing me around the waist. He's trying to steal me, Blue keens, pressing his head against my back. I swear, I wasn't. I was just asking a question. Thana tries to defend himself, eyes wide and manic as he speaks, and I just can't deal with the two of them screaming on either side of me. Both of you, stop! I interrupt, watching as they quiet, and while I can only really see Thana, I feel the way that both of them have fixed their gazes on me. At least there's no more screaming. Now, what happened? I ask in a more collected tone as I pull Blue from where he is latched on to me. He told me he could take me away! Blue speaks softly, standing off to the side where I've put him. I was just offering, Thana defends half-heartedly. Oh, he was offering to help another of his kind run from a potentially dangerous master. It warms my heart a little that Blue wants to stay with me so strongly. though it might still be heavily influenced by a misguided theory that all the ferals are cannibals. Still, this one, whether he is a rarity or the norm, seems a little worse for wear, but doesn't match the description that Blue gave. I wonder if this is good for him, if seeing the truth about what ferals look and act like is a helpful notion. I wonder if it would draw his mind to thoughts of running away. Then again, he did just thoroughly refuse escape with the help of another with some experience. Right, I whisper to myself, pinching at the bridge of my nose as though it will stave off my headache. No one is in trouble. Blue, he wasn't trying to take you. You're fine. How about you go upstairs? I give him the order gently, and I see him process. He doesn't want to leave, but he'll listen. I wait until I don't hear his footsteps anymore before I turn back to Thana. Finish up your food. I'll throw a bag together for you with some extra stuff and gauze pads for you. I wait a moment for Thana to acknowledge that, hesitating for a moment before I continue with my other offer. I can give you a pain reliever. Why does it sound like there's a but coming? Thana's smiling through the nervousness in his eyes, and I can appreciate the effort as much as anyone. It will make you quite sleepy, I admit sheepishly, waiting for his reaction. You're offering me drugs with the negative side effect of drugging me. He quirks a brow, and I do admit I feel a little silly for the way I've phrased it. I want to offer you a bed for the night. I hedge, but Thana cuts me off. But you know I wouldn't touch that offer. He completes my thought. I'd be lying if I said I expected a different answer. Still, he responds better when it sounds like I at least want something, when he feels as though he's outsmarting me, using me and reaping a benefit. I don't mind manipulating that if it gets me the results I want. Yes, but as my patient, I couldn't in good faith send you out with a histamine blocker and expect you to be fine. So I have another offer, I explain. All right, he whispers, nodding for me to continue with my proposition. I'm going to bring down some sheets and an extra blanket. You can stay out in the garden, but it's cold tonight. I won't have you undoing my hard work. I hold my breath, waiting as he makes his choice. Okay, I'll stay. He acquiesces quietly, and I really can't help the small smile that comes to me with the thought that he at least trusts me with that much. It doesn't take long to bring down a set of linens and find an old bag that I don't mind losing. I pack more than he might strictly need, but I figure he might be able to help someone else down the line. I didn't mean anything by it, he whispers after I've helped him set up his little nest on the patio, just as I'm about to walk back into the house. What? I turn back, confused by his words. When I was talking to your pet. His eyes go anywhere but my face. It really wasn't. I just wanted to offer to help, in case... He starts to ramble nervously, so I just cut him off. I know what you meant by it. It's nice that you offered to take him away from someone who could hurt him, I admit. Thana is hurt, and obviously not in the best standing, but he still thought to help someone he knew might be in need. You're a good man. He trusts you. Either that or you're one sadistic fuck who's messed with his mind real good. So, I suppose I'll figure it out if I wake up tomorrow. He smirks up at me, settling down into the makeshift bedding we've arranged together. I know it won't convince you, but you really don't have anything to fear from me. I attempt to stifle my laughter and defend myself. Either way, he seems to take the reaction well. I leave it at that, and start focusing on my other problem. When I go up to the bedroom, Blue is there. He hasn't changed, nor has he gone to sleep. He's retaken the same stance that he was in at the party. I can't imagine why he'd rather be in such a formal kneel when nobody's around. Blue... I cut myself off when I see him flinch at my voice. I give him a moment to settle, pretending it's for him when it's really for me. It's been a while since he's been actively scared of me. It's been a while since I've caused this reaction. He doesn't reply, doesn't acknowledge the action. He barely reacts to my presence. Hey, let's go take a bath and get changed, I offer as quietly as I dare, hoping that he still hears me. Blue rises without comment, nodding along and stripping out of his clothes with such detachment that it makes my chest hurt. The cleanup isn't anything major, and I realize I could just leave him in the bathroom to take care of himself, but there's a part of me that's too desperate to regain where we had been previously in the night. So instead of doing the sensible thing and leaving him be, I do the selfish thing and stay after I've run the bath. I'm careful with him, allowing myself the time and effort to just take care of him. It settles something inside me, and while I'm not sure how Blue feels about it, it's calming me quite a bit. It isn't until I'm massaging shampoo into his hair that he breaks his self-imposed silence. I'm sorry, he breathes out in such a low tone that I almost convince myself that I hadn't heard anything. What? I try to encourage, hoping that he'll at least continue, if not speak up. I'm sorry I've been so poorly behaved. I'm trying. I swear I am trying, but I can hear his voice tremble, and when his body starts getting overtaken by the trembling as well, I cut him off. Blue, you've been doing good, I praise, but it falls on deaf ears. I was so scared. He gulps, and the small anguished noise that comes out of him is nearly enough to undo me. I'm bad at this, he whispers, like it's a secret he doesn't want to admit, as though saying it out loud makes it a sin. Blue, you know in Thana's mind he was trying to help you, right? He just wanted to see if you needed help. I introduce the idea slowly, wondering if the thought had indeed crossed his mind. While I'm glad he didn't immediately jump at the opportunity to run, I wonder what he thought Thana's intentions were. I know that now, he whispers back, angry, but with all the venom directed inwards. But stars in the moment. He lets the point hang in dead air. Well, you were scared, and you came to me. That's good, Blue. You did good. I'm honored that you'd come to me when you're scared. I'm glad you know I'll protect you. I try to praise him again, nearly missing the mournful moan that escapes him as I wash the suds out of his hair. And then there's the party. He throws his arms up in the air, and it's only then that he raises his head to show the tears running down his face. What about the party? I ask, genuinely confused. That has nothing to do with what we were talking about. I know you said it wasn't my fault, but I still want you to know that I'm sorry for the mess with Jay and Catherine. He drops his head low once more, hiding his eyes from me like he knows I will want an answer. Why were you wearing the honey dust? I ask. It's a question that's been on my mind all night, though for obvious reasons it had been pushed to the back burner for some time now. Blue didn't seem to like the effects the last time he tried it. I certainly hadn't asked him to wear it. When he doesn't answer, I wrap him in a towel and pull him from the tub, setting him down on the counter next to the sink. It's enough of a flurry of movement that he does look up, holding tight to my arms like he's afraid I'll drop him. I wanted to look good for you. I don't know. It seems stupid now. He looks away, and I'm momentarily satisfied with what I can assume is the truth. Blue, I start, but apparently Blue has more yet to say. I wanted to make a good impression. He rushes to complete his thought, the wild blush painting his cheeks a bright scarlet. Blue, you did make a good impression on all those people. I reassure him as best I can. It's no lie, either. All through the night, people were wondering when I would go fetch Blue again. They all wanted to know when they would next see my perfectly obedient and trusting little familiar. He's caused quite a stir with them. I don't doubt that he'll have more friends crowding around him at the care center when I next go to pick him up, even if it is just at the behest of their master. But I made her... Blue tries to explain his point, but I cut off the flawed argument. Blue, you know that I tasted that dust too this evening, right? I queried gently. What? He looks back at me with wide, horrified eyes. I did give you quite a few kisses, and I thought it was just my imagination that you tasted so sweet. I smiled down at him, allowing for the thought to sink in. I had tasted the dust, and it didn't turn me into a raging sex demon. The point I'm trying to make, however, gets entirely lost. Even an actual aphrodisiac doesn't make you want me. He puts his head in his hands and huffs out a broken-sounding laugh. Darling, what makes you think that I didn't want you? I wonder how he could have even gotten the idea in his head. You didn't... But if you wanted me, why didn't you take me? He looks up at me, so genuinely confused that it hurts. Because I, granted, unlike most of the people that you've experienced, have a modicum of restraint, even when it comes to you, I admit sheepishly. What? Blue croaks. I wasn't gonna jump your bones in the middle of a party, Blue, I clarify, unsure what part of this he's confused by. No one would have stopped you, he says, watching me closely for a reaction. I know. I have to stop myself as some of the more intense scenes of other familiars after I'd dropped Blue off play in my mind. I know, but... I try to start again, but Blue cuts me off. I wouldn't have stopped you, he confesses. Everything in his stance and posture is just so open and honest that it hurts my chest. You know I wouldn't make you, I ask, concerned and more than a little curious. Yes, he answers without hesitation, blushing and turning away. Well then, Blue, one thing you have to know about me is that I do prefer a slightly more intimate setting, unless it's been discussed before. I quirk a brow and smile. It has the intended effect of getting him to laugh, at least. I go to help him down from the counter, but he leans closer, pressing a kiss low on my throat. He blushes, turning away as much as he can in my arms. We're in a more intimate setting now. I give him a smirk and pick him up from the counter and move to carry him into the bedroom. If this is a major source of anxiety for him, I don't mind thoroughly squashing it. I lay him down gently on the bed, pressing him back down onto the mattress when he goes to sit back up. I want to make him feel good. Tonight, he's my main focus. And for some reason, that seems to make him blush. Oh, this is going to be fun. You have to know that you are one of the most gorgeous people that I have had the privilege of meeting. I smile, allowing my voice to slip into a lower tone, watching the blush spread further down his body. I am far too entertained by watching him squirm under my careful gaze. Smart and kind. I kiss my way down his neck. And so many other things that make you so incredible. Master? Blue attempts to speak, but even with just one word, his voice trembles. Put your hands on the headboard. Let go if you don't want any more, and I'll know to stop. I whisper into his ear, watching him carefully as he nods, moving his hands up to grasp the headboard. I press a kiss directly to his lips, and it's far too entertaining to watch him gasp and strain to find more, but unwilling to relinquish his hold on the headboard. And so beautifully obedient. I chuckle. I kiss my way down his body, revealing more of his form as I strip away his towel. I'm not above using my limited but existing knowledge of what Blue likes. It doesn't take much to coax arousal from him. There's a wide array of muffled mews and bitten lips as Blue tries in vain to stifle his reactions to the best of his ability. Eventually, I'm done with my playing and find a place lower on his hips. I give his cock a slow, delicate stroke, and he bites down a yelp. He seems to like it, and that gives me an excellent idea. I wait calmly, not doing any more to him until he looks down at me, dazed and a bit confused, before taking a long lick up his dick. It's an incredible sight as he arches off the bed in his struggle to contain himself and maintain his hold on the headboard. "Master! I... He tries to speak, but I just swirl my tongue around the head of his dick, allowing whatever protest was forming in his mind to get fitfully buried under a moan. I settle between his legs comfortably as he watches me with wide eyes. I'm not sure how long I'm going to be here, but I'm not one to do a job halfway. Without any further introduction, I wrap my lips around his dick and suckle the head. Blue makes a choking sound, and I am far more amused with his reaction than I should be. As confused as Blue seems to be, his dick is far more excited. I try to focus on that. I want this experience to be pleasurable for him. As much as sex has been something that he has had to do, I want him to have some good experiences. "Master!" Blue squeaks before he goes back to biting his lip, trying to stifle any other noises. "Blue, you know me better than that. I want to hear every little noise you make. Don't you try and keep them from me." The strangled noise in his throat is definitely worth it. I swallow his cock down, mindful to at least have the pretense of going slowly. I don't want to overwhelm him, but I do want to show off a bit. I used to be fairly good at this. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't gotten the chance to have or maintain an actual relationship in a long time. Blue's knee jerks as my nose brushes his stomach. I give him a couple of seconds to adjust, and when I'm sure he won't kick me off, I start bobbing my head, keeping a hand on his hips just to avoid any surprise jerkiness. I let my other hand absently stroke down his hips, enjoying the rumbly purr that the combined stimulation pushes from his body. I try not to be too inventive or surprising. I project my movements and any change of pace I try to introduce. I wrap one hand around the base of his cock and stroke in tandem with my movements until he's entirely overwhelmed. It's been a while since I've been surprised by my partner's orgasm, but not so long that I gag or choke myself. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how the night's gone. There's a sense of accomplishment that washes over me, and Blue seems to have enjoyed himself as well. "How was that?" I ask confidently, watching Blue go nearly limp and starry-eyed where he lays. He looks up at me like I've hung the fucking stars for him. I pull him closer to me, holding him against my chest as I pull the blankets over both of us. Blue snuggles close, and the room fills with the sound of contented purrs. He's warm, and the rumble in his chest is an almost meditative lull that the noise and subtle vibrations pull me into. I'm glad that I didn't tell Blue tonight. Yeah, he doesn't need to know just yet. I'll tell him about the mess I got into later. He doesn't need to know about the accidental courtship.